Hi, my name is Isabel Spooner-Martinez.
And my name is Chizaram Iwanyanwu. And as co-presidents of FAST, we welcome you to tonight's fashion show.
We are excited to bring you FAST at UCLA's Spring Runway Show, where we will be showcasing over 15 designer lines.
This show represents the collaborative effort of all 13 FAST committees, and we hope you enjoy the show.
I'm Cole. I'm a third-year mechanical engineering major, and the name of my line is Antenna. So the idea behind my line is I wanted to explore how interpersonal communication has changed so much because of technology and how that's changed the social space in the past 20, 30 years. And I want to convey that using synthetic fabrics, colors to augment the human form. I know the intersection of technology and fashion is kind of a cliche. I mean, for me, it kind of makes sense because I'm a mechanical engineering major. It's most of the time I spend not thinking about fashion, is thinking about engineering. So, it kind of collided in my mind. And I got into fashion starting in early high school when I was a hypebeast. I was just trying to look, I was trying to stand out as much as possible. And then from there, I started developing an individual taste of what I like, what I don't like. And then eventually I realized, why am I buying these clothes? I should just be making them. I don't have the money to buy them. So yeah, it really started out with money for me, but sustainability is really important to me, and I think it should be important to everybody. It's hard for me to convey that with this line, given that I'm using a lot of synthetic fabrics, which are, more wasteful to produce. But I'm trying to mitigate some of that by using fabric that I've gotten from the Goodwill bins, fabric that I've taken from used clothes, and stuff like that, just so I can minimize the waste of my line. So my clothing is inspired by a lot of different things. Sometimes I'll see a cool looking shape or some form in nature or something like that, and I'll want to convey that through clothing. Other times I'll literally just see someone else's clothes on Instagram and I'll be like, I want to have that, I want to make that. But yeah, it really comes from all over the place. I like looking at clothes I try to look at different time periods, different cultures, but at the end of the day, it's just what looks cool to me.
I'm Ethan. I'm a second-year pre-business economics major, and the name of my line is Part-Time Plastic Company. The three words I use to describe my line are awkward, bizarre, and texture. I wouldn't necessarily texture in a feely way, but I guess just the juxtaposition of different patterns and cuts being thrown together, which they aren't typically usually matched with, is what I would say. This year, I initially went into it thinking I had a whole bunch of things I wanted to discuss about the world around me, but then I realized the more ambiguous I let my influences be, whether that just be current social events, my fascination with not necessarily tailoring, but more of that preppy or a company corporate look, as well as just in general my love for streetwear, as initially where I just started screen printing t-shirts. Just letting all those things mix and match together instead of trying to pinpoint everything down. I've been able to just really create something cool, and I hope people find as cool and unique as I did.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and I'm an economics and philosophy major at UCLA, and I'm a junior. And my partner Nancy is also a third year, and she's majoring in environmental sciences and communications. This is both our second year in FAST, and we're super excited to show our collection. When me and Nancy decided to become partners, we were originally friends, and we both had different styles on clothing. She really likes the more feminine sides of clothing, maybe short skirts, the Y2K style. And this year I wanted to focus more on a more androgynous style. So we both had the same idea of gender. The beginning of our line is all of Nancy's clothing, and they turn a little bit less feminine as they go on. We wanted to emphasize how femininity can also go into androgyny. A big thing from the very beginning was definitely about sustainability. Nancy is an environmental science major, so it's all sustainable. So far, we've just been gathering a lot of thrifted materials and just anything that we can use in our collection. I think the best part about being in the design committee for FAST is definitely just being surrounded by so many creative minds, seeing what they're doing, especially seeing what they're posting on their social media and what they're designing already is just really encouraging to you as a designer. I've always had kind of like side hustles like during school where I would sell like bracelets, like jewelry and necklaces and stuff. But I was always a little bit too scared to try out clothing design because that's like, it's a big deal, like it's a lot of work. So during quarantine, I saw a lot of people like selling their handmade clothing and I was like, okay, wait, this looks kind of easy. So I decided to just pick it up and see what I could like figure out on my own with just a sewing machine in my brother's room.
My name is Gersha and I'm a second-year math econ major and also a film minor.
And my name is Shasta, and I'm a fourth-year psychology major and a film minor as well. And the name of our line is Rebel.
So we don't really plan anything, and that kind of like ties in with the actual theme of our line, which is very like spontaneous. Everything is supposed to be bold, and I guess it's like a lot, at least my pieces, a lot of them aren't necessarily meant to be like everyday wearable kind of thing. It's supposed to be weird, it's supposed to be crazy, it's supposed to be like, what is that, you know?
Yeah. Like each piece really does stand on its own, but in a way that it works together where you can see like, oh, this is all from the same line. And I guess that really stems from us both having the same sense of style when it comes to our designs.
Yeah.
But honestly, our line is pretty much just speaking expressions of ourselves and what we would like to wear if it was common to wear whatever you'd like every single day.
The colors would kind of be like darker ones with like pops of color, like maybe like reds, maroons, purples here and there, but definitely a lot of like black faces, and mine's definitely gonna have a lot of bling. I love anything sparkly, and Shasta works a lot with metallic, so yeah, it's gonna be a very, very shiny show.
Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Samantha Lowe and I'm a third-year environmental science major and Chinese language minor, and the name of my line is Mayest. So the name of my line is Mayest, and I got that from a John Steinbeck novel called East of Eden I was reading over break. The story revolves around two brothers over several generations, and that kind of echoes the story of Cain and Abel. And in the Bible, there's a certain line with a certain Hebrew word that has often been interpreted as thou must over history, but the John Steinbeck novel takes a certain spin and interprets that word as thou mayest, meaning that not everything is set in stone and you don't know what's going to happen, and that you yourself don't have to repeat history even if it's ordained. Thou mayest for me was about experimenting and like playing with different fabrics. I personally have not had much experience in fashion design, but I've always been interested in like looking at fashion shows, looking at different ways to create clothing, express different textures and different modes and different vibes just through like the way we look. And the idea of thou mayest came from all the different types of textures, designs, and methods in my line. So for example, there's some crochet pieces, there's some sewn pieces, there's some denim pieces, and it's all about experimenting, and not everything has to be set in stone to be beautiful. The most exciting part of the design process is definitely the sketching. I think it's very fluid. There's so much more room for change in what you want to do. Nothing is quite solidified. However, my favorite part of the design process is right before it's finished. And that's when you can see your piece at its very raw state, but almost refined and finished. So I think it's just a very beautiful transition of where you can be and like how you can show people what you've done. What I want my audience to take away is that Mayest is about experimentation. And you don't always have to be perfect at something to give it a try. Just because you don't know how to do something doesn't mean that you must not do it. Mayest is about that option and that you have the destiny to choose what you want to do.
Hi, my name is Holland. I'm a fourth-year ecology, behavior, and evolution student, and my collection's name is Evolution of Theory. The name of my collection, Evolution of Theory, comes from an homage to my collection last year, Theory of Evolution, and it's all about me still bringing in the idea of chaos and nature and tying those together, but now trying to refine my eye and my hand and creating some clothing based from the pattern. I'm a huge advocate of sustainability and nature, and as an ecologist, I'm out in the field all the time, so I really try to use that as my main influence for color and patterns and designs, and try to get them where I can and more of that organic feel. I would say that just being around the designers alone is a huge inspiration. The collections last year really inspired me to want to actually create my patterns from the ground up rather than just taking old articles of clothing and embellishing them. So I would just say just the endless support and the creations and the ideas that they have are just endlessly inspiring.
I'm Rafael Larnaga. I'm a first year studying design media arts, and the name of my line is Epitaph. you look that up, it has to do with like memories, but like memories on a tombstone. So this line is kind of like, I guess, reviving old memories that I have of places where I'm from, where I grew up, and the culture that I grew up in. So I was born and raised in South LA, like cities like Inglewood, Hawthorne, and my parents are from Mexico. They immigrated here. That's kind of the culture I'm pulling from. So like Chicano culture, Mexican-American culture, and LA culture. Being from South LA, the design industry, the fashion industry, or like basically any industry isn't really accessible. The goal of my collection is to put those places I've grown up in on the runway and embody that history and that fight that's present within those cities. So when I was a kid in like Inglewood, growing up in my room, I ran into Virgil Abloh in his collaboration with Nike. I kind of did research on him, and I was like, you know, I found that this dude was from Chicago, and he was also a designer of color. And when I was in my room in Inglewood, it was like, I didn't feel welcome to these spaces as a Mexican-American person because, you know, no one really looked like me. No one had the same name as me. And that really pushed me to be like, oh, I can do this. I can do fashion.
I'm Christy. I'm a fourth-year computational bio major, and the name of my line is Encore. The reason I named my line Encore is because it's French for the word again, and the whole concept of my line is kind of redoing things again, doing it a second time better, and just because something's been done before doesn't mean that it's lost its value. My line focuses on themes of rebirth and magnetism. The rebirth part kind of comes from the fact that I'm using all secondhand materials and sustainably sourced materials for my line, things that I picked up actually at the thrift store that people don't really want anymore, and kind of reimagining them and giving them a new life and the things that would be desired. There's a certain allure, I think, to having something that is ethical and timeless rather than like trendy and new all the time. And I made everything in the line on a black and white, like kind of like grayscale, because I just wanted it to be simple, minimalist, and really just timeless and elegant, and not something like too flashy, but it is still very alluring and draws you in. I was a part of FAST for the past 2 years, and I was a model in the show last year, and so I was working really closely with the designers, and I just really got inspired by their whole process, their creativity in making fashion. And even though that's something that they don't study, it's something that they really are passionate about and want to do it on the side. And I've always just had like a lot of passion for fashion myself. My mom always used to sew things when I was growing up, so I kind of was just inspired by watching her behind the machine as well. And she taught me how to sew, and so I decided like I can do that for myself as well. I, as a model last year, got like custom like measurements and fitted for like all my pieces. So I've been trying to do a similar thing with my models because a lot of my line is like minimalist / like simple, and so I just wanted to prioritize pieces fitting really well specific to each model. A lot of the designers draw influences from their daily life or their cultures or their families or anything like that, and it's inspired me to do a similar thing and just really appreciate the things around me and how everyday items can inspire you.
Hi, my name's Beth Rodriguez. I'm a third year here at UCLA, and the name of my line is Uniques. So my line's mainly focused on recycled materials. I tried to avoid like using fabric most of the time because it's really about recycling items and like using that in order to create a new look. My goal would be that, I guess, just to surprise the audience, and I think like thinking outside the box and thinking just differently makes something more unique and different and odd. I would say that what got me into this would probably be my mom. Ever since I was little, she would always dress me up and kind of always teach me how to match the colors. And so based on that, I would say that it kind of just evolved from there. My dad, on the other hand, he has a workshop, so it's very like hands-on. So I would always use his material and kind of get the idea from there. I think my favorite part of doing this collection would be mixing the fabrics and kind of manipulating all the materials into one. In my newspaper outfit, I tried to make a pleated skirt, and so for this, I folded the newspaper and ironed it as well in order to make it clean, but yet have that type of messy background as the newspaper, which is very odd. But to me, I think being different is something very strong and it's a statement. And using these type of clothing, I think just really makes a person stand out. And just fashion design overall, I think it's a very powerful thing that one can use in order to represent their identity.
My name is Gabriel Discipolo. I'm a 4th year sociology major, and the name of my line is PCH Car Fire. So the name comes from my inspirations for the line. For this line, I wanted to take California tropes and kind of decay them into like monochrome. So it's a lot of black, a lot of white. And it's kind of this idea of taking something that a lot of people view as golden and happy and fun and making it all black and dark, but then finding beauty in that too. And so PCH, Car Fire, comes from the idea of this like beautiful drive. Everyone thinks it's so fun, but it can go horribly wrong at any moment. And so it's like this underlying pessimism, but finding the beauty in that pessimism. And my favorite part of the process is seeing it on someone else. So in this case, on the models, and really seeing how the clothes move, because that's the moment for me when what I made or what I thought of becomes real and exists and interacts with the world. I think that's a really cool moment. I think I'd like the audience to go home with their own interpretation of the show, and they're going to interpret my ideas how they want. But I do want to say that it's going to be a lot of black and a lot of white, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be depressing or kind of downbeaten. So don't get caught up in that, I would say, my only advice, but and try to see kind of the beauty in the pessimism.
My name is Priya Kinaboina. I'm a 4th year applied math major, and the name of my line is Machine State. Machine state is derived from this thing, so in computability theory, which actually not even computability theory, I feel like a lot of people know about it, the Turing machine is kind of the baseline of which like computers and like the universal computer is based off of. And in the Turing machine, there's like a little like blank, they call it like a tape reader, and then there's a machine head. And the machine head kind of goes across the tape reader and like does all this stuff. And when the machine head's in a certain place, the machine head has a certain machine state that corresponds with it. It's kind of how the theoretical Turing machine would read the instructions. And it's a name that I chose kind of arbitrarily, but I guess I could say it kind of spoke to me because as someone who's making clothes and more specifically making them by hand, there is this feeling that when you create clothes, when you output them, you're kind of being compared to machines. You kind of are a machine in your own way, not only creating clothes, but like posting them, having them perceived, having them like purchased if you sell. So there's this weird dynamic between you and, or rather myself, I suppose, and machines that I've been thinking about a lot, especially as I guess technology advances, and at the same time people are still kind of returning and really identifying with the process of slow fashion and handmade clothes. I think my line this year is mostly about trying to find my own, I guess, personal vision for what I want, not just like the clothes I make to look like, but the work I make in general, and what kind of inspires me, I suppose. I wanted to really pare it down. I think last year I did a lot of things that I thought looked really good or were really ambitious, but I really want to focus in more on like minimalism, construction, and kind of cutting away like all the excess to really get like at the core of the kind of clothes I want to make. So I guess this line is not really focused on anything, and it's more of an exploration or experimentation of what I'm interested in when I do design garments and make work beyond the scope of fashion.
Hi, I'm Ben Cloutier. I'm a junior computational math major.
Hi, I'm Rama. I'm a 2nd year computer science and linguistics major, and the name of our line is Magic Headphones.
Something that we really shared as like a common experience was like walking to class and having our headphones on and like the music's super loud and just like feeling really confident and cool and like wearing a crazy outfit and stuff. And so I think that was kind of like the spirit that we wanted to translate into our collection for this year is this idea of like magic headphones that transport you into like a fantasy world about fashion.
Yeah, and like the headphones I think is like one of the most singular like important things that puts you like outside of that like perception, and you feel like you're in your own world. And the more control you have over like what you wear and just like how confident you feel, I think that's what we wanted to express in our line. Fashion and music have gone hand in hand, and there's so many like music stars that have like completely influenced us in like femininity and just like in how they express themselves, where it's not traditional at all, even though they might have a traditional audience.
When I was younger and like back at home, I think like music was definitely a good outlet for me, and it really was like I was like living the magic headphones lifestyle. And I feel like a lot of the time, like without really even knowing it, whenever I'd be going somewhere, I'd be listening to music and just like fantasizing about this like version of myself. A lot of the time, like in LA, like at UCLA and stuff, that was more able to express myself. And like I just think that was like music was a really important tool for me then, and it remains one today. So I think that that's like an important concept for our line.
Hi, my name is Chizaram Iwanyawu, and I'm a 4th year psychobio major.
Hi, I'm Bisola Amurupe, and I'm a 3rd year previous econ major at the moment, but switching to international development studies.
And then the theme for our line is Afrofuturism. Our line's really about like creativity, thinking outside of the box, and really putting different types of materials together.
Each of our pieces are like very different. Like it's not just like one succinct theme within that one look. It's very different, but they all come together as like this fun line. Yeah.
Takes a lot of research, going through Pinterest.
Yeah, Pinterest be your best friend.
Yeah, going through Google, just looking at images that you kind of want to emulate. It's really what we did for hours. I like to kind of just think of random things and put it on paper and kind of look at my environment, what shapes could I put together, what textures could I put together.
I definitely look into different designers such as like Claude Kameni, and kind of like her whole aspect of incorporating like the Ankara prints and textiles. I also look into like different influencers.
I think another one for both of us is culture. Like we both really take what we see in our like everyday lives, because culture is so like a part of our lives, and we really incorporate it into what we do and how we design. We pick a day, we pick a time, she comes up to my apartment or I go to her place, and then we just start sewing the entire day.
Yeah. This year, we started incorporating jeans and like sourcing different denim for like our closets or like family members, friends. We like upcycling different pieces, as well as like kind of like some of our old collections low-key.
Yeah, we're basically giving pieces a whole new life with our collection. As one of the presidents, I kind of oversee like all of the committees.
We get to have like our pieces come to life, whether that's through like photos or through models or through what else, like magazines and stuff like that. Yeah,
photo shoots.
Yeah.
FAST has really created a space for me that I believe high school me would be so proud to see where I am now. I've seen myself grow, and I've become like a little mentor to her, and I'm gonna miss it, but it's definitely opened avenues for me too, and opened up my mind.
I'm gonna cry. Stop.
Hi, my name is Sarah Hernandez. I'm a 3rd year MIMG major, and my collection is called Late Night Daydreams. The name of my line, Late Night Daydreams, it references how most of the pieces and just looks in general came to me, I guess, in dreams, daydreaming, very suddenly. What motivated me to pursue fashion design was an initial interest in learning how to create and make things. I started off with crochet and sewing, and then from there, just following patterns, I realized that it would be interesting and like fun to start working on my own pieces. Last year, I worked on a collection with a partner, so having people to like bounce ideas off of and just see like what people can create, it really inspired me to go further. I've been working really hard to make sure that the pieces are usable in everyday life, and a lot of the pieces are
able to be worn or taken apart and worn in different ways. Together as a collection, maybe the pieces are fun, interesting, but I also want them to be very wearable in the everyday. I think the line will represent me well.
My name's Ella Schindler, and my major is computational and systems biology.
My name is Maxwell Manning. I'm an aerospace engineering student and senior.
And our line is called Epilogue. Our line is about a post-apocalyptic scenario. So as like an epilogue is the last part of the book, this is sort of like the last part of our world. And then the fashion sort of ties into the fact that in this very realistic post-apocalyptic world, the fashion is a direct result of your surroundings. So we have 3 environments, tundra, desert, and forest, and whichever one you're in is where you're gonna sort of draw your materials from to produce your fashion.
I mean, I think the main thing is kind of that, ground up kind of idea of you're really a product of your environment, no matter who you are or, where you go at the end of the day. And so we kind of just take it to the extreme, right? Where you have no choice really to be, maybe stuck in a certain location on the planet or have access only to certain resources.
I think the inspiration for the line sort of started with, we both really like sci-fi, dystopian movies. So things like Dune, Blade Runner, their outfits are really, really cool because they're not something you would necessarily see in everyday environments. I think just being in the design committee, there are some insanely talented people, just ridiculous, at the age we are and not having a design major at the university. It's just dedication. It's not something they're actually studying and seeing how talented they are. It's very inspiring.
Yeah,
I think that is definitely something, it's a really good environment to be around, especially when you want to start those creative processes.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing that inspired me to even do this in the first place was the fast runway show. So I kind of owe pretty much everything to the club at this point, and which I'm very grateful for. So yeah.
Definitely.